Welcome everybody to the New Brew podcast, Learning Circles with Dr. Sandy. This is our second one. We're very fortunate with Learning Circle number 1. Trisha from Chicago came along and shared her ideas on STEAM and trans digital art. So if you would like to go onto YouTube, by all means, have a look. Before I start today, we'd just like to acknowledge where I live is the Dakiyoung country. So I would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional owners of Australia, and we acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters and cultures. We wish to pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. Well, this person that we're going to have lead us tonight in this learning circle is one amazing inventor, one inspiring, amazing educator who's come from the early childhood sector. And I really respect you enormously, Kylie. So Kylie Barrett is from Splat3D, and on her page she's called Ms. B, and her husband is Glennie D, and they have, out of a needs base, I think, invented one of the most amazing things. And you'll see I've actually drawn behind me. I watched a YouTube video and I was instructed by Glennie D, and seriously, it took me no time at all to construct, pull up here, a playground. Now, I've taught drawing myself as a teacher forever, and I've struggled with kids with 3D spaces, for example, and this little invention is an amazing thing. Why am I behind it? And that's for us teachers. So when you're modeling, why am I behind it? Because I am, as most of you know, just been appointed for Lecturer of Research for STEM, a Master of Research. And I think we need to understand that our future is STEM and STEAM. So I'll just give you some information before we get going with Kylie. So we're very aware that currently growth in careers for Australia in particular, because that's where we're based tonight, 20% of growth in employment is within the field of STEM. Why is that important? Well, if you compare it to non-STEM field, their growth is 10%. So the growth for employment is 20%. That's significant. If we go higher and we look at things like the OECD, they know, and this is why I think Najib might smile, robots are one of the leading areas to move into. I know Najib and I met with, and doing a robot cup in Nigeria a couple of weeks ago. So moving forward, we think about it, so science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Personally, I like creative arts, and mathematics is an area that interests me, and I'm always mindful of girls in particular. And we know, for example, girls are shying away from mathematics by year 5 and 6. So the AMSI, which is Australian Maths and Science Institute, and researchers like Lavie and Sand are telling us by interviewing girls that they are shying away because they find there are a few factors. And one factor that they say is that they shy away because it feels like it's a boy thing. Right, engineering is a boy thing, mathematics is a boy thing. Another example that they shy away from is they're finding it hard to find women who inspire to move into the field. Well, I think this little beauty has got a lot of potential for us globally. So I proudly introduce you to Kylie tonight from Splat3D, and I would like to hand over to you, Kylie. Up to you.
So exciting to get to talk to you all in person. I have actually spoken to Jared previously, so I'm not really sure how many of you have already heard the podcast that I did with him or have any understanding of what the Splat is. So I'm just wondering whether I can just throw that out there at the moment. Is there a bit of a background knowledge there for a few of you? Yeah, I'm getting a few heads nodding. Fantastic. Yeah, I can see yours, Natasha. Great. Awesome. Okay. So I started out as an educator in the classroom, and while doing my master's, as I spoke to Jared about in the podcast, I became very interested, almost like compulsively driven to try and understand why we weren't getting enough students into STEM. For me, I always loved science and maths, and I'd done my, I had at that stage almost completed my master's in information science, and was specializing in schools as a STEM specialist and a technology specialist. So, you know, for me, it was like, why aren't other people into this? You know, where are all the nerds? Come on out. And what I found was in my research that there's a real dip in confidence in girls in mathematics around year 4. It's as early as that they feel like they're not capable. There's a lot of statements out there and a lot of conversation around oh, boys are just naturally better at spatial reasoning and all that sort of side that underpins mathematics. A lot of girls were having to be tutored, especially in spatial reasoning at their university foundational years, so that they could actually be leveled up to go into their first year of engineering against their male counterparts. What was really interesting is, as I studied, I discovered that the actual women that were then given the opportunity to do spatial reasoning programs, developmental programs at that point, as part of this research unit, actually ended up graduating in higher numbers with better results than their male counterparts, even though prior to that initiative, or what was called an intervention at the time, they were dropping out or not completing. So it was quite interesting to see two things. One, the use of language and how we convince people that engineering is for them, because the language that's used around that is often very male dominated, and it's really, there's so much unconscious bias, we don't even realize we're doing it, you know. It's really interesting. And then the second thing is the spatial reasoning. So there's a language that we're using to promote it, and the ideas and what really is engineering, and how does that link to STEM and STEAM and creativity and all those areas. So it's kind of like rolled up in a really tight bundle. And once you start pulling it all apart and looking at the reasons why people aren't engaging and girls are falling off in their confidence levels, is because it's not at university that this intervention needs to occur. It's actually in the foundational years when these skills are actually being laid down developmentally. So if we look at the development of our students in those preschool years, kindergarten, first and second, in those very early years, that is the time. That is the time that spatial reasoning is coming together. It simply is the way that we navigate our world. And we have known for a very long time that there's 3 basic ways to improve that skill set. You can build and manipulate with blocks. So that's why you've got a block corner in every preschool, and, you know, and the boys always gravitate to it, but we can talk about ways to change that as well, because it's all in the language and the narrative is what has been discovered. So, so constructing and building with blocks is very, very important. Creating maps and using spatial language up and down, left and right, you know, creating a treasure map and going on an adventure, mapping things out very, without that narrative, again, often locks out a lot of girls, because in their development, as we know cognitively, they're a lot more verbal early on, and they narrative really wires up when it's linked in with emotional storytelling and connection. So those things there are really important. And then the third way to develop this skill set is drawing an isometric. And there you go. So we don't teach isometric drawing really until high school. And by that time, you know, the dip in confidence in maths occurring in year 4 for a lot of girls, that's years ago. They've moved on, they're not engaging, they're not interested. And so I was like, so how could I actually get a child to draw an isometric. And why is that so important? And why in my STEM classes, even in the early years, am I seeing the visual representation of diagrams and blueprints shrinking down to tiny thumbnails? Because as they lose confidence in that mathematical skill, which most people don't even perceive to be mathematical, their drawings also shrink. Their representations in which how they communicate their idea lessens as a reflection of their internal confidence. So I guess there was this real obsession, like I said at the beginning, to really try and uncover why. I have no idea why I became so obsessed with this. I had worked in industry, in engineering, in film and television, a really fascinating area of engineering. So I sort of felt shut out from that a little bit. And I think that when I went back into the classroom and I saw this disconnect and I saw girls losing confidence, I thought, oh, don't lose confidence now, because in 15 years, you'll be so upset that you're on, the comms desk instead of on the workshop floor, because potentially your teacher, your educator, the community that you were, in, really just didn't understand the mechanics of how early interventions in spatial reasoning can alter significantly pathways and also long-term engagement in STEM across all fields. So we do know it's the #1 long-term predictor in engagement in STEM for men and women. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. That's how come I started this whole process and became obsessed with drawing an isometric. I've got a little drawing I did this week. I don't know if you can see it. Hold it up there. Can you see it? It's a room.
Instagram page, isn't it? I was looking at that today. Yeah. So if anyone would like to have a look at the Splat3D Instagram page that's there, and you've got a little video too, haven't you? Yeah,
that's inside a bedroom. So that's a cube challenge that we're doing at the moment. So that's fun, that's more artistic. But I think we overcomplicate things in education, and everything is siloed, and that is really very challenging as someone that wants to develop a skill that underpins all areas. Because often no one then takes ownership of it, like it belongs in maths, no, it belongs in art, no, it belongs. So it's something that as educators we need to understand, especially as classroom teachers in the primary years, that is our responsibility. We can role model that. So many teachers were unable to role model isometric drawing in year 4 for their students. They just didn't do it. And the reason we don't test for it is because it's too difficult. You've got to get the isometric paper out, as opposed to testing algebra or something like that. So in exams, often you'll just see the cubes, count the cubes, do volume, like it's not very well explored. And often it's done, particularly in America, I hear from a lot of American teachers, it's sort of put off to the end of the term, or the very last thing that they do, when it should be the first thing. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background into why I'm so passionate about it, its place in the classroom, the significance of it, and why I developed the tool. Essentially, when you're drawing with that tool, you are drawing in isometric. So there's oblique and isometric. I'm actually focusing on the isometric because it's the natural way the brain actually imagines objects.
Can you isometric, what you mean by that?
Yes.
So will be, early career pre-service teachers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So see this box here, when I hold it onto the camera flat like this on a slight angle, but mostly it's flat to you, and you can just see a little bit of the side, that's oblique. That's an oblique view. So what it is, you can see the 3D object, you can see that it's not completely flat, but it's front on or side on. When we look at an isometric view, we're actually looking at the point, and you see both faces equally. So if it was a cube, do I have a cube here? I'm just trying, here you go, here's this little one. If I had this container here and I had it sort of on an angle like that, that would be more oblique. But if I have it so that you can see the exact corner and the length of both sides equally, and also the top, then it is isometric. And that's generally how our brain is wired to view the 3 dimensions of our world and how we move through it. You'll see it. It's Lego, it's Minecraft, it's everywhere. It's the natural, you know, style in which we perceive and mentally rotate objects.
Have a look here, everyone. That's what we're talking about when you have a look at the simplicity of it. So when that really, I think it's like an 11-minute video, Kylie, and it was so easy to do. And in all honesty, as you're developing it, like you are literally lining it up and you're just moving it according to the instructions that are very clear and succinct. So it's very good explicit instruction on your YouTube channel. We can follow those steps clearly. So yeah. We've got some people who've actually got some in front of them today. I'm wondering if they want to have a go at doing it themselves. So
so yay!
I've actually been sketching as well. Wait. I can't see it from
there. Oh, you might have to turn off your background, but show us Kyle.
Oh yeah.
I made like a monster, and then I made like a cube.
Yeah.
Dodgy.
I was trying to make some.
You've got an oblique cube there, Kyle. That oblique is that cube is in oblique. If you look at this and the point on the splat, you'll see that that point forms the isometric point.
Well, I'll follow you, Kylie. So if I put it here,
yep,
and I'd go here. Oh.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that there's only 5 core objects to design anything in the man-made world. Yep, that's it. That's step
starting. And then if you go up here, you start forming the cube, and that was the base. That's what blew me away, was that was the basis of the play gym, and it just got better and better and better. And spinning everything around and putting dots, it's clever.
So the idea is that when we're actually, the beauty of the tool, there's a lot more to it that it can do, but basically when we're physically manipulating something with our hands, it also is helping us mentally rotate that image in our mind. So it's a really important conversation that your hand is actually executing for your mind. They're not 2 separate things. And so that's why we talk about the triple helix with engineering design, because you have the mind, the hand, and then you've got the empathy from the heart, trying to understand and connect how to best solve this problem. Your ideas generation, and then the hand is actually articulating that for you visually. So it's a very powerful connection. It provides a lot of feedback in that process of manipulating the tool. All 5 objects that are required for engineering design can be drawn with that tool in 3D in 3 easy steps. So every single object, it's just 3 easy steps. And 80% of our world is actually designed based on a cube and or a cylinder. Right? So wow. You know, you go into a classroom and you say to students, oh, how many, you know, like objects, shapes, you know, because they all think everything's a shape, but I can talk about that too, but we probably run out of time. There are in the world to make everything. And they're like 1 trillion, 1 billion, you know, this, that. And you will not believe it. You try this on your prac and you say to them, well, guess what, guys, there's only 5. Right? There's only 5. And I can even get my kindergarten kids to have a crack, and they can do all of it, and so it's quite exceptional. I was told when I first started this journey that I would never get a primary school student to draw in isometric the way I expected them to, ever. And I got laughed out of so many meetings, and then to have mute students, you know, with autism drawing competently in those early years. It's another thing you have to be really aware of on your prac. There's a lot of kids with learning disabilities, a lot of Indigenous students that have issues with numeracy and literacy. They will fly off the hook with this tool. and it will give you a whole different outlook into perceiving what potentially intellectually is happening for them, as opposed to scoring them on how they're going in their spelling test on a Friday. So that's something.
I really believe in, if you look at our hashtags, I always say engage so that you can empower. And what I'm saying is those children that you're talking about, if you can engage them somehow, they would then want to learn in other subjects. And I would be very surprised if a child wasn't engaged with building, drawing, designing, for example, a playground that is actually doable. As I was doing it on the video, I was quite shocked how much every step was so easy to follow. And that I also did the little cubby and the little dog house. I just think I'm dying to try it in schools. Haven't been able to get into schools yet because of COVID, but I have been drawing myself, and I've been going on doing a few videos, and I've done the cubby house as well, and the dog house as well. And I think it's masterful for engagement, masterful for success, and then from there, imagine what's going to happen. And I just find, and what I love about it is the cost factor. It's cheap and it's durable. So all those factors, and to me, I think they're colourful and attractive personally.
Of course, I'm a primary school teacher. It's got to be in every colour.
What I'm also just thinking just then as well is the fact that like it's a tool they can almost like procrastinate with. It's almost like a thing they can just have on the table. And even if it's something that, like, even if it's just a lesson that is just, no, it's not that interesting, they can just have this on their table and just sketch out a little drawing, and just they're still using the perspective of 3D objects. They're applying it on this little tool. But it's just so simple, and they can just make something quite nice, quite cool.
Yeah, and a lot of schools have them. Like, you'd be surprised, like, since starting this project, we have actually sold and distributed over 100,000 splats.
Wow.
And so, like, this is not just a handful of schools. This is, we have schools in 14 countries around the world. A lot. Like, I have lost track. Those websites that say we're proudly supported by this school and that school. I've lost count a long time ago. So I would definitely be asking if your school has splats in the cupboard. So a lot of teachers do have them. If they don't, you're welcome to reach out to me and I will send you one personally. If you've got that really challenging child that you're having difficulties connecting with, leave it out. Let them have an explore. Draw something in front of the class and then put it to one side. And it does attract the students like a moth to a flame.
Do we have any questions for Kylie? Because that brings us to the end of the Learning Circle tonight. Karen would like to see some more Indigenous designs. Have you given that much thought, Kylie?
Yes, no, actually, there's a lot of conversation about that. And I don't know if you're aware of the Paint the Sky competition I ran last year. Okay, so you all need to get a copy of Paint the Sky competition. I ran it with Corey Tutt, who you may know, and that is a free resource. It was also the assistant principal Sarah Weston, who is gifted and talented teacher on Instagram, helped me write that. And it was in conjunction with the department, and it was sent out. Now, we have a lot of students using Splats, and some of the stuff you'll see is quite remarkable. And there is definitely an energy and an element to Indigenous design that is not very well discussed, given that their history with design is staggering. Yeah, so that is definitely something that I would talk about. In fact, there's research now to indicate that in some areas of Australia have shown the very first aqua engineering protocols on the planet historically. So yeah, there's a lot of rich information there. So I would love to team up. I've been working behind the scenes, believe it or not, with Rove McManus and Corey Tutt on maybe a TV show. all things, but not me, like Corey. And I'm just trying to find avenues to connect with Indigenous communities to raise the profile of design. So if you come across anyone that's interested, I will put my hand up. But it's to date, it hasn't been easy to access that information and knowledge as much as I'd like to.
So I believe Karen Wallace, who is our expert, who is doing a PhD on this very topic of Indigenous students, said that by the age of 3, students who are from Aboriginal background have spatial reasoning. Let me tell you that again, by the age of 3.
That's crazy.
And I believe that well and truly with who I have worked with. And so if you think about it, then if we are not focusing on that as teachers, like you said, we're putting it to the corner, we're waiting till term 4. Hello.
You're losing the best of probably what they can do. Like it makes me teary. It actually does, because I call them Bloom's satellites. You know, this concept of Bloom's taxonomy, you know, and for the Indigenous students that I've worked with and some students that have had learning difficulties or find it hard to connect to traditional learning classrooms, I have found them so high up on the Bloom's taxonomy, but cut off at the knees by their literacy and numeracy expectations that we're required to sort of present as, you know, a statement of where they're at. So Karen, I am yours. If you ever want to do anything or have any questions, please think out.
Having a conversation, as we can all appreciate now after tonight. So the New Brew podcast, Design School, Karen Wallace, I think between us, we've got a Najib in Nigeria, Alam in Morocco. We've got the beginnings of a pretty cool global movement. So that brings us to the end of our learning circle tonight. So I'd strongly encourage you to go onto Splat3D. I personally love the Instagram page, but if you would like to learn, go onto their website and there's links to YouTube. You are one of the most generous couple I have ever seen in terms of sharing. I ordered for all the New Brew podcast gifts for everyone, and not everyone's got them yet because I refuse to mail at the moment because of COVID. I'm not mailing, so if I can't give it to you in some sort of close proximity, you'll have to wait. But honestly, you encourage me to think that we always talk about STEM, how we're going to do it, where we're going to go, how do we get girls in particular interested, and then, you know, Indigenous students, you know, those kids who have ADHD, all those things. They're the ones that people go, well, what are we doing? Well, here's a way to go forward. And I'm always solutions driven. And I would like to applaud you tonight, Kylie, for your perseverance, because that's what I want to talk about, because people were saying to you, no.
Perseverance. Oh my goodness.
Wait a minute. You kept on saying yes, and look what you've achieved for so many children.
And I was told no from a lot of teachers I worked with, right? A lot. So you will get
like
that.
My whole career I've been told, oh no, Sandy, you can't do that. I go, really? That's like saying to me, that's like, go on, Sandy, go for it. So don't ever say no to me, because I'll go, okay, I'm going to try and work out a yes. So so thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kylie. It's been a wonderful learning session for all of us. Stay tuned, everyone, for a New Brew podcast learning circle in October. Thank you, everyone.
See you. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much.
Found you.